You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the ProBlack Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maat, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace Seeker. 3,500 years ago, an African prophesied about the future of his people. If you have Wayne Chandler's Ancient Future, I want you to turn to page 180 and listen along to this prophecy from 1400 BCE. The barbarians will be masters of the banks of the Indus. There will be contemporary monarchs reigning over the earth, kings of churlish spirit, violent temper, and ever addicted to falsehood and wickedness. They will inflict death on women, children, and cows. They will seize upon the property of their subjects and be intent upon the wives of others. They will be of unlimited power. Their lives will be short, their desires insatiable. People of various countries intermingling with them will follow their example, and the barbarians being powerful in the patronage of their princes, while the purer tribes of the earth are neglected. Wealth, spiritual, and piety will decrease until the world will be wholly depraved. Property alone will confer rank. Wealth, material, will be the only source of devotion. Passion will be the sole bond of union between the sexes. Falsehood will be the only means of success in litigation, and women will be objects merely of sensual gratification. External type will be the only distinction of the several orders of life. A man, if rich, will be reputed pure. Dishonesty, anyaya, will be the universal means of subsistence. Weakness, the cause of dependence, menace, and presumption will be substituted for learning. Liberality will be devotion. He who is the strongest will reign. The people unable to bear the heavy burden, karabara, the load of taxes, will take refuge among the valleys. Thus, in the Kali age will decay constantly proceed until the human race approaches its annihilation. When the close of the Kali age shall be nigh, a portion of that divine being which exists of its own spiritual nature shall descend on earth. They will re-establish righteousness on earth. The men who are thus changed shall be the seeds of human beings, and shall give birth to a race who shall follow the laws of the Krita age, the age of purity. Now, I didn't do the reading that much justice. If you want, go back and read it. Or go back and listen to what I just said. But did you hear what I started off with? That's 3,500 years ago. 1400 BCE. Are you following me? This was in ancient India. They prophesied, or this scholar once upon a time prophesied the coming of their destruction. But notice how similar that destruction is to what we experience. And there's a reason for it. See, if you approach race, let's say scientifically, right? Or anthropologically, or even biologically, if you approach race from a scientific perspective, right? The same way you would approach studying an animal. You can see that the behaviorisms can be predicted, can be predictable, can be consistent across time. So here you have an ancestor who can observe the ancient, what you would call then Aryans, but what we know today as Eurasians, Europeans, whatever you want to call them, but Eurasians, right? He sees this ancient Eurasian and he says, I know what he's looking to make. I know what he's looking to build, and this is what he's looking to do to us. You understand? And in that description of what he was going to do to India and which he did to India, bear in mind, the Indus Valley civilization was taken over by the Aryans. But that description of what he was going to do fits the same domination that we, as African people, under white domination, if you will, experience. You understand? This is why I'm going to tell you, if no one else will, that we are in perpetual war until one of us is dead. Because their system of governance is incompatible with our system. And every time they're going to try to impose their system on us, as long as they're alive, as long. And what should mean to you, I don't know. I don't know what that should mean to you. But what I am letting you know right now is that this has been ongoing and will continue to go on until something stops it. When you look at Wayne Chandler's Ancient Future, he gives you a second prophecy. This one from Ancient Kemet. It's on page 181. He says, it befits the wise to know all things in advance. Of this you must not remain ignorant. A time will come when divinity will return from earth to heaven. O Egypt, Egypt, of your reverent deeds only stories will survive, and they will be incredible to your children. Only words cut in stone will survive to tell your faithful works, and the Scythian or some such neighbor barbarian will dwell in Egypt. For divinity goes back to heaven, and all people will die deserted, as Egypt will be widowed and deserted by God and human. Whoever survives will be recognized as Egyptian only by his language. In his actions, he will seem a foreigner. You know, it goes on because it's being told to Imhotep, and Imhotep begins to cry. You understand? Imhotep begins to cry. But this is an understanding. This is what you have to understand. There is a difference between you and I. There is a difference between you and I. I have always told you, I've always been a scientist. Okay? I have always seen the writing on the walls. I have always told you what dangers were coming to us and what we needed to do to stop it. But you haven't always listened. When we discuss knowing yourself, when we discuss knowing yourself, we have to acknowledge that you have to know who you were, who you returned to this earth to be, who you failed to be in the past, or what you failed to do in the past, and what you're failing to do now, or what you are supposed to be doing now. When we talk about self-knowledge, so I'm letting you know who I am. I'm not saying I gave the first prophecy or the second prophecy. You understand? But I am on the side of those prophecies. You get what I'm saying? The only question is, on what side are you? See, my lineage, who I am, saw them firsthand. You see? Because, people like me knew something was coming and said, let's do something about it. You get what I'm saying? And then there were people like you who refused. And still refused. And we've been going at this for around 8,000 years. You understand? See, my lineage said, kill them before they grow. You see what I'm saying? In the ancient world, I said, there are these beastly savages up north. Kill them before they grow. Come with me. We got to do this. You understand? And you can read more about that in my book. In my books. Kill them before they grow. But your lineage said, how about we teach them so that they know? You understand? Later on, my lineage said, after your lineage won out, okay? They became powerful, strong. They started to attack India, right? And this is what the brother earlier was speaking on. What our ancestor earlier was speaking on. He said they're going to take over India. So when my lineage saw that, I said, we must stop them at India. You understand? And you know what your lineage said? You said, India could fall. But Kemet never will. You understand? You said, India could fall, Kemet never will. So then I went into India, I fought, and I died. Because you didn't come with me. You see, we lost India. And that was the dawn of white supremacy, as you know it, as you so call it. But after that, when I came back, I said, look here, they're at the gates of Kemet. We must defend Kemet at all costs. And you know what your lineage said? Look, man, Candyman's about to fall. Let's go into the interior. Let's retreat on the inside. And that was actually the second prophecy. You understand? You can't recognize people from Kemet anymore. You understand? The people in Kemet, the Africans in Kemet, aren't building any great works anymore. You understand? Kemet was on a path toward just constantly, just being monumental until the rest of time. That's been canceled. That's been canceled. The ancient Africans don't even live there anymore. That's what the brother was saying. That's why Imhotep was crying. And that's on you. You understand? It's not on me. I fought and died in Kemet. You understand? And we fast forward. I came back and I said, look, brothers and sisters, the Arabs are coming for us. We got to do something. We got to do something now. We got to embrace our way. And you know what you said? You said, Assalamu alaikum. That's what you said. I said, oh man, ain't this something? They killed me again. You see? So when I came back, I said, hey, look, the Christians are coming. Now is the time to return to us, to do what we need to do, to stop this madness. And then you just called me a pagan. You understand? That's what you did. So we lost that battle too. And now, I'm here in the form of Onitaset Kumat, you know. And I say very articulately, I say an African war without an African army is an African genocide. You understand? I'm poetic now, right? I say get up and fight, you know? And then you know what you say? You say, well, only speaks nice, but I like Tariq Nasheed. And the reason why I know you say this is because Tariq Nasheed has 211,000 followers on Twitter. You understand? And I got 173. You see what I'm saying? 176. You know? Or maybe you might say, oh, I like Angela Davis. You know, because she did so much, so on and so forth. You understand? You gonna name somebody else. Meanwhile, I can't tell you how many times I come back to tell you we need to stop a genocide. But you like everybody else under the sun. You understand? And notwithstanding that it's welcoming genocide. You understand? That the genocide is coming. Unless we listen to what I've been telling you for the last 8,000 years, we're finna go extinct. Enough is enough. You see? See, I've been telling you that it's race war. Get that through your head. You understand? Get it through your head. As a black person, you will not and should not fix white society. So anytime somebody else is telling you something about fixing these white boys, fixing a white society, you need to tune them out. You need to say, no, look here, you deceiving us. There's a genocide going on. It's race war, and it always will be. And I've been telling you this for 8,000 years. And every time I come back, you just let me die. So look here. I'm about to promise you that whatever the outcome of this battle, listen, I'm going to return. Okay? But I can't say the same for you. You understand? The time for cowering has passed. You gave up your supremacy. You never listened to me. And now that we are back having the same conversation that we've had for 8,000 years, listen. Okay? Just listen or die an eternal death. We are at war, and it's time for you to engage in that war. Whatever the cost, we must survive. The message must reach the people. The message must touch the people. The message must inundate the people. And the message must be the people. But what is the message? So check this out. On Twitter, I wrote, if you're an ideologue or in an organization, you have to be able to answer these 5 questions. 1, what is your ideology? 2, what are your political objectives? 3, what are your economical objectives? 4, what are your cultural objectives? 5, what are your ethical objectives? And if you cannot answer these, you need to read and study more. This is utmost. You understand? This is of utmost importance. But of course, I only have 174 followers, like I said. Yeah, I know I said a different number earlier. It fluctuates. But and of course you got to compare that. Like I said, you got to compare that to other people. You know, you got to compare that to other people. 174 is not a lot, but I have quality followers. You see what I'm saying? I got quality followers, and two brilliant minds in the form of Amos Magazine, you know, also known as Gospel Yonder, and Kemal Rashid answered, and they gave me permission to respond to that. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell you what they wrote. Okay? And I want you to think on their responses. And then we're going to cut to a commercial or a break, and then we're going to come back to what's going on, you know, to analysis and analyzing what it is. So the first one is Amos, also known as Gospel Yonder, right? And he writes his ideology is African-centered biological nationalism, AAPF. Political objective is overthrow of white power of African people. Economical objective, control of land, businesses. Cultural objective, return to African languages. And ethical objective, removing race mixers and sodomites, right? And you got to give the brother credit, because him and Kemal did it all in one tweet, which is 280 characters. You know, I was expecting everybody to do, you know, maybe 560 characters. But Kemal Rashid, he writes pan-African nationalism as his ideology. Political objective, sovereignty, and the creation of a united Africa. Economical objective, an economy that provides for the basic needs of all, that seeks to maximize the potential of all African people. Cultural objective, the Re-Africanization and the incorporation of the best of human culture. And ethical objective, Maat. You see what I'm saying? And you know, again, both of these brothers are impressive. But Kemal does it again and says, this one, he says, his ideology is Abibi Fahodie, translation, African liberation, right? Political objective, Kujitawala, translation, sovereignty. Economical objective, Ujamaa, translation, cooperative economics, socialism, right? Cultural objective, Sankofa, translation, Re-Africanization, right? And then ethical objective, Maat, translation, truth, justice, order, harmony, Katha Wakatha, right? Now, interestingly, you know, most of us would say, you know, that last one was pretty creative, pretty elegant, right? Here's the thing. You have to, I want you to think about all three answers, you know, Gospel Yonder's and both of Kemal Rashid's, right? Think about all three answers, but also think about why one, you know, what are the pros and cons of each, if you will, right? But you think about that while we're on a break.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace seeker. If you seek to develop prosperous, independent African communities at home and abroad, the ProBlack Compendium should be your next purchase. No other book offers as complete a study on you. Your ancestors urged you to know yourself. The ProBlack Compendium informs you on you, your ancestors' enemies, your enemies, and what you can do today to live free. Purchase today while you still can.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
Okay, so we're back. Now, listen closely. In the ProBlack Compendium, we have I have a quote from Amilcar Cabral, right? And it goes, always bear in mind that people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children. Now, let me tell you about these individuals, to the best of my ability, right? Gaspar Yanga is an Amos Wilson scholar, right? But he also fights day and night for our survival, okay? ACBN philosophy is this recognition that there is this authentic African phenotype that is subject to being exterminated, to being replaced, and eventually made invisible. You understand? So Gaspar Yanga is a part of this ACBN movement, as well as AAPF, right? But he's a part of this idea that we need to preserve the authentic African phenotype. Okay? Because what now passes for Berbers or Indians or Arabs and so on isn't Africans anymore. Isn't what looks like you or I. You understand? What is coming to Africans under Eurasian domination is the appearance of Tracy Ellis Ross, Alicia Keys, and Jidenna. If you get what I'm saying. And then eventually what will pass for African is Tom Cruise, Angelina Jolie, and Brad Pitt. Okay, I don't really know white people, huh? but you understand what I'm saying. Gaspar Yanga's and ACBN are going against this trend of our extermination, of our phenotypical extermination. You understand? And that is, that's utmost, right? And on the other hand, Kemal Rashid, he's an exemplar of our culture. You get what I'm saying? Brother's a warrior, like physical combat warrior, like swords and capoeira. You see? But he also speaks at, high level conferences, writes astute articles, knows our languages, and mentors our youth. You understand? So both of these gentlemen are the real deal. You understand? So when you thought about their philosophies, or when you thought about their responses, you heard they're the real deal. You understand? The real deal. But of course, you heard Amilcar Cabral too, where he said, nobody's fighting for ideas. They're fighting for material benefits. And not just what he said, but in that spirit, you can see how even the real, authentic warriors on our behalf, right, are not taking in the lesson of keeping it simple, if you will. You see, and I'll go into that later. I'll go into it later. But one thing you have to realize is that our ancestors, if you haven't realized already, with regard to, you know, the prophecies I told you, our ancestors have already been here. You see what I'm saying? And they already knew what was coming. You see? I can show you what Du Bois wrote 100 years ago and how it applies today. You know, about how, well, he says, you know, a century ago that kids don't have too much, you know, entertainment options, you know, in their local area, you know, and he was doing a survey and people were just answering. So I could, if you want, you know, if you want from me, if you want me to show you what I'm talking about, I could send it to you. Just hit me up. You know, my Twitter is at Onitaset, and I'm on Tumblr, Onitaset again, you know, Onitaset. But also, you could just look at the description of anything that I post, and you'll find what I mean, right? Or just look up Onitaset, because I'm the only one with that name. But I can also show you where J.A. Rogers, you know, says that black people, some black people, particularly of you know, well, the way how he put it was like lower class, would use the N-word profusely, and he would reason why. But of course, J.A. Rogers said this before hip hop was a thing, you know, because he died in the 1960s. You see? Or I can tell you what Marcus Garvey said in 1923 about mass incarceration, you know? And this is, of course, in, you know, Philosophies and Opinions on Marcus Garvey, but he says, the number of blacks in jails, prisons, and reformatories of the United States, the British West Indian, and other colonies and countries, the protectorates and dominions of Great Britain and France in Africa, is shamefully in excess, proportionally, of all other race groups to the populations, and between the blacks and other shades of Negroes, not including the Sambo or brown skins and dark mulattoes, the percentage is almost 99% against the black and other dark ones. Something is wrong. There is a conspiracy somewhere. I can't stand for it. I would rather hang than be quiet about it. It is a sin, crime, and shame. It is a blot upon and against the white man's system of justice, meted out to the blacks with the history of slavery considered. The white race cannot escape the blame and fail to honestly admit that there is a collusion between them and the near whites against the interests of the blacks, which in turn is sure to destroy the racial purity of the white race and inflict grave injury upon the blacks. Marcus Garvey, 1923, talking about mass incarceration, right? And in 2012, I reprinted Malcolm X's, I believe, founding speech, you know, in 1964 for his Organization of Afro-American Unity, where he talks about stop and frisk. You see, and I say I reprinted this in 2012 because back in 2012, stop and frisk was the conversation at the time, right? But here's Malcolm X saying where this police brutality also comes in the new law that they just passed, the no-knock law, the stop and frisk law. That's an anti-Negro law. That's a law that was passed and signed by Rockefeller. Rockefeller, with his old smile, always has a greasy smile on his face, and he's shaking hands with Negroes like he's the Negro's pappy or granddaddy or great uncle. Yet when it comes to passing a law that is worse than any law that they had in Nazi Germany, why Rockefeller couldn't wait till he got his signature on it. And the only thing this law is designed to do is make legal what they have been doing all the time. Nothing new. You understand? Nothing new. This is what they do. It's what they did in the Indus Valley civilization. It's what they did in Kemet after it was conquered. It's what I've been telling you from the time, from as long as we've been talking. And I don't mean now, I'm talking about way back. But again, you didn't help me out when I was here before. You understand? You didn't help me out when I was here before. I died in poverty. And see, I was born in poverty now because I died in poverty. You see? So, again, nothing new. Amilcar Cabral already knew that we are too intellectual and we're not communicating the why of our ideology. You know, what will black people connect to? You know, so going back to Kemal and Amos magazine or Gospel Yonder, these men will say what is right. But the number one tip for charming people is using our way of reciprocity to our advantage. You understand? So our people are reciprocal. Therefore, and this is on page 199 of the ProBlack Compendium, you know, rules for charming, but be perceived as giving more than you are perceived to receive. You understand? That right there is the rule. Be perceived as giving more than you are perceived to receive. You see, that works in everything. That works in every relationship you have, if you will. You know, it's like if you see someone, let's say you see someone that you're trying to attract, and all you do is compliment them, right? Then they might say thank you. You're not giving them, they don't perceive you as giving them anything unless they were desperate for compliments, right? However, if you tell them, hey, look, I can show you a good time, and you know, in better language than that. But if you communicate to them that you're offering them something that they may want, or that you're giving them more than they are giving you, right? Then you got them. You understand? But that also translates into your ideological ambitions or your objectives for your ideology. You get what I'm saying? And before I go into that too, I wanna go into page 67 where I talk about the Kikongo, and remember Kolo de Akanga Onganga Kutulu Onganga, you know, and just this idea, right, that when you code something, right, a specialist should be able to decode it, right? And what is fundamental can only be easily understood within the system. But basically, if you're going to code something for our people, you have to make sure that they can decode it. Because if they can't decode it, then the code is useless. You understand? Or the code backfires. You see, and we're going to go into that particularly when we talk about Kemal's second responses. You know? Because it's all coded. It's all coded. But let's go into what I'm trying to communicate to you, which is that your ideology must have material benefits, or must signify to people that they can live better, and they can't, and this material benefit, so on and so forth, can't be coded. And if it is, or if it is coded, it should be easily decoded. You get what I'm saying? So we go back to, the master mass mobilizer, Marcus Garvey, and what his code or his mantra was, which is Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. You understand? So what he's telling you, or anybody who's listening has to understand, is you have something to gain in joining with him. You have Africa to gain. You understand? So it's beautiful in that regard. You see what I'm saying? Marcus Garvey says, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. So you, whether you are at home or abroad, understand that, or you decode it for yourself, that Africa will be yours. So you know what you have to gain from following him. Now, is it a complete communication? No. Will everybody understand it the same way? No. If you're abroad and he says Africa for you, that means something different than someone who's at home and he says Africa for you. You know, if you're under apartheid and you hear Africa's for me, then you understand that someday you will be leader of your nation in Africa, right? Whereas if you're in the diaspora, you might say, I have somewhere to go, you know? So it's different, but it communicates to everybody. Not the same thing, but it communicates something of gain, of reciprocity, as to say, I help out the UNIA, and then I have something great in Africa. That's mine. And you'll notice that this mantra that he had, not only, you know, stands, you know, you don't only say it's great because Marcus Garvey was an excellent organizer, right? But also just on the merits of reciprocity, just on the merits of charm, you see the benefit, you see that there's something to gain, and you have to contrast that with, you know, these brilliant minds who gave me permission to share a critical analysis with you. See, my ideology, like Kemal's, is pan-African nationalism. You see, usually this is a political ideology which always has had the same political objective as Kemal put it, of the creation of a united Africa. But of course, you have to realize that this means nothing to anyone. You see, it is very possible to unite Africa, but it seems impossible. You see? And the big question is, what can I get from it? See, it's different when you say, you know, what Garvey says, because Garvey was looking for a united Africa too. But it's different from Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. You understand? You know what you're going to get. And it means something to you. It means you get Africa. United Africa, in and of itself, doesn't mean anything to anyone. You understand? And no one understands what they can get from that. You see? And I'll ask you, what do you get from a united Africa? Now, there is something you can get. And not to go in on Kemal unfairly, you know, let's look at Gasper. Gasper says, you know, overthrow of white power. Black people, do we understand what we can get from the overthrow of white power? Now, Gasper knows what you can get. You know, Kemal knows what you can get, right? But here's the thing that we have to understand, and I'm saying, you know, a lot of people can understand what you can get from that, but understand this, that black people may not always be as deeply thinking as you. You see? Or as Gasper, or as Kemal. You understand? So for instance, Gasper may say the survival of our genome, you know, or even our phenome, right? But even that isn't clear as what benefit it brings to people now. You understand? What benefit does it bring to me now? You know? Again, go back to Amilcar Cabral. Go back to Amilcar Cabral he says, always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's heads. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children. You understand? So even something like the survival of our genome or our phenome, right, doesn't clearly illustrate to a lot of people what benefit they will get. You understand? See, for me, I know, cause I'm coming back through our genome, cause I've been here before. You understand? But white boy done told most black folk they got one life. You understand? So Whitey done told you ain't coming back anyway. And the thing is that when you do all that mixing, you ain't coming back. You understand? Or if you do come back, you're coming back my enemy. And I'm not gonna be forgiven. You understand? So anyway, but again, like I said, not everybody's gonna understand that. You see? So let's analyze these responses, and I'm gonna give you a response, and then you can see what I mean by the difference. You understand? And again, bear in mind that, you know, I'm a pan-African nationalist. You understand? So I'm looking to unite our continent once again, because I done told you where and who I was 8,000 years ago. You understand? I'm about power. But listen, we're going to look at these responses.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace seeker. If you seek to develop prosperous, independent African communities at home and abroad, the ProBlack Compendium should be your next purchase. No other book offers as complete a study on you. Your ancestors urged you to know yourself. The ProBlack Compendium informs you on you, your ancestors' enemies, your enemies, and what you can do today to live free. Purchase today while you still can.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
So here's what the political objectives were, right? Gospel Yonder said, overthrow of white power of African people, right? And again, this is, you know, and one of the things was this, that when you look at these responses, notice that everybody fitted in 280 characters. Okay? So it's going to be more concise than necessary. And it's going to be more coded than necessary. But listen, but also understand that insofar as this is what it says, that people may not be moved by this remotely. You understand? Even though it's right. So this first one, Gospel says, overthrow of white power of African people. So now that you heard what I said, what do you gain from this? You understand? Our people were made to fear that without white power, there's black power that does the same thing as white power, which it doesn't. You understand? It doesn't. But that is what our people have been made to fear. You understand? So when they hear overthrow of white power of African people, they think, oh, well, you just want to be powerful. You get what I'm saying? They don't see they don't see themselves being empowered because whitey lost power. They see themselves as perpetually powerless and perpetually oppressed. You understand? They don't see the source of the oppression as white power. They see themselves as oppressed, notwithstanding who's in power. You see? Look at what Kemal says. Sovereignty and the creation of a united Africa. Again, or unified Africa. Again, what does that mean to people? You see, sovereignty is right. Okay? It's right, but what does it mean to people? You see, when people, I remember one time I was having a conversation a long time ago, and this sister, I was talking to the sister about pan-africanism, and she said, she's like, oh, I'm from Nigeria. Well, you mean that thing that happened in Liberia, where, Africans from the West came over and enslaved Africans in Africa? And I was like, whoa, but that's how they tell that story, and we don't, not many people know how much the West was involved in that whole situation. You understand? How much Liberia was following the Western direction. But again, what does sovereignty mean to people? Or is it not coded such that sovereignty means something different? You see? And then also the creation of a unified Africa. What does that mean concretely? How does that improve the life of our people? They already say, well, look, we got the African Union. We already unified. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or we go into Kujitawala, right? Which is again sovereignty, but is again even more coded than the last. And you can see that. So the way how I would, and see, purposely I knew that when we would answer these questions, that they wouldn't fit into, Cabral's, look, don't make it ideas, make it beneficial to the people. I knew that because, again, Cabral was already there. He was already here, and he was saying, look, I need to tell our progeny, don't over-intellectualize, or keep it simple. You understand? So here's what I would say as a political objective for Pan-African nationalism, and tell me if you can hear the difference, right? Black militancy organized across the African continent and diaspora for African protection. Do you hear the difference? Do you hear the difference? Because people will not, because people may argue and say, hey, look, unified Africa, I don't know if that's possible. United Africa, I don't know if that's possible. Overthrow white power, but what does that mean? White people always going to be powerful. That's how they think. That's not the truth, but that's how they think, right? But what I'm saying as an objective is black militancy organized across the African continent and diaspora for African protection. I wanted to share with you guys a quote from Frederick Douglass when he was on the plantation. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I read, when I was, I'm guessing in high school. But Frederick Douglass talks about how his, how he would hear enslaved Africans on the plantation argue with each other. And basically their arguments would be, my master is better than your master. Right? And that's pretty much the full extent of their squabbles, if you will. Right? Just pretty much, my master is better than your master. And it reminded me of when I'm talking to one of my friends in Africa. Right? She would, when I would discuss other African nations, or even when I suggested going to Africa, she said, no, come to my country, because my country is the best, right? You know, my master's the best, pretty much, right? Even though she told me she couldn't write certain things on the internet, you know what I'm saying? Out of fear of government reprisal, but whatever, right? Anyway, she says, my master's the best, right? Not only does she say that, though, but then she also craps on other nations, regardless of how close they are to her nation. You get what I'm saying? And it just reminds me of the passage in Frederick Douglass's book. Now, if I had the time, I would look for it, but I don't have the time right now, right? And you could just read Frederick Douglass on your own. But the whole thing is that African people are not like other people. Right? We can unite easily. You see what I'm saying? We have united easily. But because we're now under this domination where we think my master's better than yours and you and I can never get along, even though we easily can. You understand? Even though we easily can, and the only squabble we have with another people is that we think our domination is better than theirs, or our jollof rice is better than theirs. You understand? But notwithstanding that, and before you, and I know some people are some of you are tuned to think, you know, well, what about these conflicts, right? But again, you know, you have to understand that a people under domination will serve another people. You understand? That's the whole point of being dominated. Or that's the whole point of these people dominating you, is for you to serve them. So a people under domination will serve another people. You understand? And do the bidding of another people. And that's something that you're not, you know, that you don't understand just yet. You know, every day that you go to work or even look for work or whatever is you going to serve the people who dominated you. Or you looking to serve the people who dominated you because that's what they dominated you for. You see? But the work that they want of these conflict situations is conflict. That's the work they want from those people. They don't need you to conflict with anyone, but when they do want you to conflict with somebody, you conflict with somebody. And you know this. Okay, you know this because a lot of the conflicts going on in your, you know, near your neighborhood or in your neighborhood, right, is being funded, financed, and encouraged by the people who are dominating you. You understand? As to say that there's no network of black people creating weapons or importing drugs or creating the drugs. Nothing. I've seen the manufacturing of cocaine done all the way in Southern America. You get what I'm saying? Black people were not a part of that, but somehow they get the product. Notwithstanding they don't have any airplanes. What I'm saying is the conflicts are created. You see? So before you know, because I know you're tuned to think, hey, you know, only you painting the rose picture, you know? No, I'm letting you know what it looks like without domination. I'm letting you know what it looks like in domination, but also letting you know what it looks like outside of domination. Outside of domination, there's, the conflicts are limited, if existing at all, and they could coexist. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because the political objective that I laid out, black militancy organized across the African continent and diaspora for African protection, is not no one objects to that. But nobody's communicating that is what Pan-African nationalism would mean for them. You see? When you say the United Africa, they say, well, wait a second. Under my domination, that doesn't look good. I don't want to be united with somebody who can't cook jollof rice. They're going to say something stupid like that. But understanding that we are unprotected as a people, communicating that much, that we are unprotected, but we need to organize ourselves for our protection, and that Tanzania could come to the defense of Nigeria, and Ghana could come to the defense of Jamaica, or all of us can come to the defense of all of us. Understanding that and communicating that right there, first off, is Pan-Africanism, but it's coded in the earlier responses, right? But again, that right there shows some benefit to the people we are trying to recruit or trying to get moving to our cause. You understand? But I'll move on because timing is short. But let's look at this economical, right? So Gasper says control of land and businesses, right? Which again doesn't mean it's not wholly abstract. It's good. It's good, but at the same time, you know as well as I do that a lot of African people are going to hear that and say, first off, they're going to say, can't I do that here? Or can't I do that already? You see? Can't I do that already? Control land or businesses, right? Or there are going to be some people who say, I already have a business. Why would I need to join you for a business, right? Other people might say, I already have land. Why do I need to join you for land? Other people might say, how are you going to get that? But the whole thing is that, and then other people are going to say, what's you having land or business going to do for me? You see what I'm saying? It's not communicated. So while it's right and excellent and smart and intelligent, it's not communicating what is good for the people being recruited. And again, there was a limited amount of space, although I didn't say limit the space, but there was a limited amount of space, so you got to bear that in mind too. But go to what Kemal says: an economy that provides for the basic needs of all, that seeks to maximize the potential of all African people. Again, that's fundamental. You get what I'm saying? Fundamental, but it's fundamental, and it's coded. The thing is that it communicates the benefit, but it's coded. And our people may not be able to decode it. Because right now, you probably have an idea of an economy that provides for the basic needs of all, that seeks to maximize the potential of all African people. But your idea might not be my idea. It might not be Kemal's idea. You understand? But again, this is a good response, but whether it will move people, and that's really what's important. What's fundamental here is whether it will move people. Is another subject. It's a little abstract, but of course, when you go forward to Kemal's second response, and most of these are going to be abstract. Although it's elegant, it's abstract. But Ujamaa, cooperative economics and socialism, right? It's just completely abstract. completely coded. But of course that is more reflective of how we normally communicate with each other. And that right there is problematic because again we got to go back to Amilcar Cabral. So here's what I wanted to say for this economic objective, and that was a reduction or elimination of the cost of living. You see, so in the ProBlack Compendium, I inform you that Maria Carolina de Jesus says that actually we are slaves to the cost of living. This idea that what white people did to us was make it so that we can't live for free. You understand? We can't live without serving white people. You understand? So he inflated the cost of living so that our domination requires us to serve him, almost to the point of being tired. You get what I'm saying? It's tired and frustrated, but having to do it. So what I say is economically is that we as a people understand that the cost of living is too high. Or as a politician in New York put it, the rent is too damn high. You follow? So reducing and eliminating the cost of living, which is something that a nation can do. You get what I'm saying? Something that a nation can do or a government can do. Right? Being able to reduce or eliminate the cost of living, right, is a practical objective, but also something that people can understand. You see? They can understand that. And it's related to their experience, to their economical woes. Because again, go back, a control of land or business, that is related to the only reason why a person would want control, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons why somebody might say, oh, I need some land or I need a business, is because the cost of living is too exorbitant for them. You get what I'm saying? Or go back, basic needs and seeking the maximum potential. The idea that they're not seeking their maximum potential, or their basic needs are not being met because their cost of living is too high. You see what I'm saying? And the thing is, again, your objective must communicate to the people what's good about it. You get what I'm saying? What's good about it? Let's move on, right? So we're going to talk about, cultural objectives, right? So Gosper says a return to African languages, right? A lot of people will hear this and not see a benefit. Not only not see a benefit, but a lot of people, or at least most African people, already speak their African language. You follow me? Right? But they don't like the benefit in and of itself isn't self-evident, particularly the people who might not speak their African languages, or even the people who might speak Eurasian languages, because they see that it's a trade language, if you will. So that in of itself, right, that objective might not necessarily appeal to anyone. And again, it's not entirely clear why you would devote yourself to an ideology for something that you can do already. You get what I'm saying? Like you can learn an African language already. Now again, Gosper using limited space, it might mean more than this. It might mean return to an African language being the supreme trading language. You get what I'm saying? But again, it's not entirely clear to our people what benefit, speaking Yoruba or Zulu or Kiswahili might be over speaking English, Spanish, or French. You see? Let's go to Kemal. He says, Re-Africanization and the incorporation of the best of human culture. Right? Again, abstract, if you will. Right? Re-Africanization. Right? Another thing, like again, first, like one thing is that our people, no matter how colonized, no matter how westernized, right, or even easternized, can't see themselves as not being consistent with their ancestral pattern. You get what I'm saying? That's to say that the Re-Africanization matter almost means nothing to most African people. Like in many ways, everyone believes that they already know everything and they're already doing everything right. You understand what I'm saying? But on the other hand, of course, the incorporation of the best of human culture, it's not entirely clear. Like I can understand it, yes. Kemal can understand it, Gosper can understand it. But the whether it jumps out on somebody and tells them, hey, look, this is gonna be a benefit to me. If I pursue pan-africanism and we start to incorporate the best of human culture, it's not really clear what it means. What is the best? Like what is, like, to whom? And what does incorporating it mean? Where are we incorporating it? It leaves a lot of questions, a lot to be desired. But again, limited space. So I'll let that pass, right? The next one, of course, Sankofa, which is Re-Africanization, or as I like to look at it as turn back and get it. Again, it's abstract and coded, but that's of course what we do normally. What we normally do is we make things abstract and coded, and then wonder why people dealing in their concrete situations, aren't gung-ho about it, notwithstanding how important it is. You follow? So the way how I would put the culture, because again, there's a lot of cultural objectives to my ideology of pan-Africanism or pan-African nationalism, right? A lot of cultural objectives, which is, one thing that people would often say is that we're looking to impose one government over a diverse people, right? And the reality is that nothing could be further from the truth. If you listen to pan-African nationalists, we're kind of how Kemal put it, we're looking at all of us. You understand? We're looking at all of us, and we're trying to, we're raising up everyone, but the way how I would put it, right, is an exploration, preservation, and empowerment of indigenous African cultures, ancient and contemporary. You understand? And this right here is not necessarily, like, this one right here is kind of abstract, notwithstanding that I understood the the critique going on. But again, it's also addressing an objection, and that's something that we as a people have to start doing too. We have to prepare, like in charming, like I said, you have to prepare for the objection, the resistance. And the reality is that what I wrote right there, an exploration, preservation, and empowerment of indigenous African cultures, ancient and contemporary, isn't really objectionable to anyone except for people who really hate African culture. You understand? But it's really not objectionable to anyone to preserve, our own narrative, or to empower our own creations. You see? And what a united Africa may look like, notwithstanding, it will give us the opportunity to explore, preserve, and empower the cultures of our land. You understand? Because right now we have Eurasians who are doing much of the anthropological work. I think it was just the other day that they were celebrating the first black person who can go into a tomb, be the first modern person in a tomb to study it, in ancient Kemet. You get what I'm saying? And if I remember correctly, he had like a white woman on his team. But the shame of it all is that here is our land, rich of our culture and our ancestral legacy, and everyone else is there, doing, looking at it, taking it apart, touching the treasures, bringing the treasures back to their land. It's like when you go to Kemet, if you want to go into certain monuments, you would need permission from Arabs. You understand what I'm saying? You need permission from the colonizers, from the invaders, to visit your own land. It's just like the pieces in the museum. You were working on these things in a museum, then they stole you and the object, and then they tell you to pay them so that you could see what you were working on before they stole you. You understand what I'm saying? But let's move forward, right? So we're going to talk about the ethical objectives, right? So Gosper says, remove race mixers and sodomites, right? And again, what he's saying may well be right, okay? Insofar as, preserving our genetic heritage or our genetic lineage or our phenotype, right? But that's what you would have to see. You get what I'm saying? If he says preserve our phenotype in perpetuity, right? He might say the same exact thing, but it would be more charming, if you will. You get what I'm saying? It would communicate more to people what's the good of it. But again, preserving the phenome might not necessarily be as appealing, and even saying something like assuring that we can return to the earth after our death, that might be too esoteric, right? But again, removing race mixers and sodomites, is doesn't communicate a material benefit to anyone. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that no one would like that. I'm just saying that the material benefit to whomever is hearing of the ideology might not necessarily be clear. You see? Like, it might not necessarily be clear. But Kemal says Maat, and he says Maat both times. Truth, justice, order, harmony, katha wakatha, right? again, it is abstract. You get what I'm saying? It is abstract. And although, I know about Maat, and I think Maat is definitely, an ethical objective, if you will, right? It almost means nothing to, people outside of let's say the community. You get what I'm saying? So when you're talking about mass mobilization, or not even mass mobilization, but mobilization in general, or organization in general, or going into your local community and moving people, or getting people to, develop ourselves, because again, Pan-African nationalism is not a small goal. You know what I'm saying? It's not a small goal. It's a huge task, a high task, So it maybe a small team can get it done, but realistically speaking, the impact is going to be on a huge global international level. So just this objective of Maat, elegant, eloquent, right, and respectful of our ancestry, right? The reality is that it's abstract and way too coded, right? So I, of course, the ethical objectives is a hard question, right? So what I wrote, and remember, like, I mostly wanted to, share a political and economical objective, but the ethical objective here that I wrote was basic rights for all Africans in all parts of Africa, right? And so that right there is coded, but people can decode it too. You understand? People can decode it too, and the reason why I put this also is because it's consistent with this idea of a united Africa, as to say that what we think of a united Africa, or a lot of people when they think of united Africa, they think, well, there's a lot of African nations that are garbage and corrupt, and also, let's say, abusive and oppressive, right? Or that's the impression they have, because again, remember, my master is better than your master is really consistent with Eurasian domination, that Eurasians put it upon us to think, well, the grass is worse on the other side, don't go anywhere, you don't got nowhere to go, you're at the best place you can be, but basic rights, right, which really, again, doesn't really mean anything in particular, or doesn't mean anything that everyone understands, but at the same time, everyone kind of has an impression of what basic rights means, right? And there's this idea that the basic rights would be for all Africans in all parts of Africa, right? Or even, outside of Africa too, but just this idea that all of us have these basic rights, right? And that's why we are struggling for Pan-African nationalism, right? And the reality that, notwithstanding whatever the government may be, whether it's a confederation, a federation, whether it's a union, whatever it may be, whether it's one government, whatever it could be, right? The idea is that we're fighting to secure for everyone, for all of our people, rights, right? That's something that people can get behind, even though it's not as concrete as it needs to be. But you understand that someone can look at it and say there's a material benefit there, or that my children can live better lives from that. From having rights, from having rights, and just to elaborate on rights, there was this shooting in Florida, and a lot of black people were saying, why is it that this shooter was treated better than black people, who might be just selling cigarettes, or might be driving a car, or might have a toy gun? Why is it that this white boy who was a killer has why is he so well respected or well treated? And the reality is because he has rights. You get what I'm saying? He has rights because, he practiced, because his people practice a nationalism where they afforded themselves rights. So pan-African nationalism affords you some rights. I mean, and I'm not saying, hey, well, on a pan-African nationalism, you could go and shoot a school, definitely not saying that. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is that, why this white boy is treated as he was treated is because he has rights. You understand? And of course, that's the worst case scenario for showing a person that they have rights. But notwithstanding, he has rights. And let's face it, you don't. So, long story short, right? When I'm definitely grateful to Amos Magazine or Gospel Yonder for allowing me to, respond. Hope he doesn't regret that decision. And of course, Kemal Rashid, I'm grateful to you too. And I hope you don't regret the decision neither. But I'm hoping everybody can learn to benefit. Has benefited from what I from how I looked at it. So I'm gonna repeat my answers to these questions, and then just say it in a nutshell. But this idea is the political objective is black militancy organized across African continent and diaspora for African protection, right? Economically, you want a reduction or elimination of the cost of living, right? Culturally, you want an exploration, preservation, and empowerment of indigenous African cultures, ancient and contemporary. And then, ethically, you want basic rights for all Africans, globally, but mainly in all parts of Africa, right? So, in short, the Pan-African nationalist state will secure your basic rights, protect you, eliminate your cost of living, and keep your cultures alive, right? And then you can see how this right here is more attractive than we will unite Africa, right? You understand? We will unite Africa compared to, we'll create a nation state that secures your basic rights, protects you, eliminates your cost of living, and keeps your culture alive. You see the difference. And of course, that follows through with, like I said, I wrote about charm in the book, right? So I'm gonna finish here, but I gotta apologize to Black African Power Network. He's a good brother who's putting audiobooks, out for some of the greatest works that we have, But he wrote me a second review for the ProBlack Compendium, and so I have to apologize because I kept telling you guys I only had one review when I had two, right? But it was a different website though, so that's why I didn't see it. But also, I'd like to acknowledge all the brothers and sisters that supported me. I'd like to acknowledge everybody who purchased the book, right? And everybody who wrote me or commented to me or tagged me or anything, or put up photographs of them with the book or even pages in the book, and not too many pages obviously, but everybody who's done something, I appreciate it, because every time I come back to this earth, I don't always fight alone. You get what I'm saying? I mean, I fight always, but I don't always fight alone. So I appreciate you if you're here to fight with me. To fight against this genocide. To fight this war with me, right? But still, I only have 2 reviews. You see what I'm saying? So I still need more, right? But thank you for listening. I need you to share this podcast. Last week's had around 150, which is pretty impressive, right? But you know as well as I do that we have fools that reach further and enemy propaganda which reaches even further than that. So I'm calling you to help, right? And you have to do better, okay? Because again, there's information that needs to get out there, and you have to do better to get it out there. I know you want me to do all the work, because again, I've been here before. You get what I'm saying? But teamwork makes the dream work. And you need your people to wake up as much as I do. You need your people reading good literature as much as I do. You get what I'm saying? I need black folk to share my book, the ProBlack Compendium, so that when I come back in my next life, black folk know what's up, and I won't have as much difficulty getting us the power we need. Don't slack off. After this video, after this podcast ends, you send this to the people you love, then you send it to the people you hate, and you don't gotta tell them which one they were. All right? Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Onitaset, Onitaset. Again, I'm debating everybody, right? And you can hit that donate button because I could use a sandwich this week, right? And then make sure you subscribe and share this video. And don't forget, you can be my next guest on this podcast, okay? I might not always have, the guests that you're used to, but listen here, all right? I have love for you, okay? And I will always fight your enemies every lifetime. Every lifetime. But don't let me fight alone, okay? Fight with me and get a copy of my books, all right? Because I want to write more, but I need you to read more. Because this is it, Oftentimes we have African people. I'm not going to say that they were me. We often have scribes like me who've written books and passed away before they affected the zeitgeist, if you will. I don't want that to happen. I do want to come back, but if I do come back, I would want my book already in the zeitgeist. You understand what I'm saying to you? I know you're saying why I thought you said we shouldn't be abstract. I want my book already in the zeitgeist. I would like for it to be in the zeitgeist right now. And by zeitgeist, I mean just the popular, kind of like how Black Panther is right now. Everybody's talking about Black Panther, the movie. I want what's in my book to be on everybody's lips, on everybody's mind. You understand? I want everybody to already be thinking about it. If you were already thinking about it, 50 years down the line, when I'm already done buried, fine. But I want it now. And you should want that too. Of course, you need to read the book to see why. But again, African love, I go in peace. Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.